So that's interesting that we are now at that point in this conversation, because that has been something that is ongoing for certain families and people in the games industry, about how the work life and the family life kind of, when they cross, things can go kind of crazy. Is there anything other than what you just mentioned about, like, when you're up at 2 a.m., you're like, why am I doing this? Why am I doing this? Is there anything that you can give as information to a person who may be, 4, 5, 6 years at a studio and ultimately probably going through the same thing? Because I believe staying in a studio that long, you do have to commit at some point and put your all into it. What are some of the things that you would have done differently? I think your situation is unique, though, because you said your wife was away, or your fiance was away.
Yeah.
But what are some things that you would have done differently to mitigate your time better when she was there, so that you do understand your split of, like, I'm not at work, I'm at home? Or do you have any information you could share on that, of, like, for someone that's maybe going through that same thing of, like, because we all remember the EA story where people were just, the EA wives, where people were just working their butts off. And, in our industry, if you're a salary, you're not getting OT. You're not getting paid extra money. It's just, well, how much passion do you have? Do you want to come in this weekend? Not particularly, but we're all coming in this weekend, so we're going to see you here. And you're like, what the fuck, right? Yeah. So, but what are some of the things that in this experience that you had here for Carbine, since you were there for so long, that you could take away for someone watching and going, like, man, I really do need to step back and really assess my situation and not, do this, because it's unhealthy for myself, it's unhealthy for my family, it's unhealthy for my children if I have them,
Yeah. I didn't have kids at the time, but I think now the way that I kind of look at things is that I still do work my ass off and still, try to take the world on my shoulders. But, I try to make it home to hang out with my kids, to put them to bed. I wake up with them, I feed them breakfast and hang out with them as much as I can. And that, really the only times that I'm crushing myself with work is when it's closer to a deadline. And as long as we're planning well ahead, you don't have to. Like, we are close to a deadline now.
All about time management.
Yeah. It's all about figuring out, what are we trying to deliver? Is that possible? Are we making good progress towards it? Do we either need more time? It's managing that stuff is part of it. But I tend to think about, in the future, is it going to be worth my kids not remembering me, because I was at work for 14 hours, for 5 days a week, 6 days a week, to get this title out, right? For some people, it might be, you might have gotten World of Warcraft out doing that, right? And that's World of Warcraft. So that's going to make you a millionaire. So maybe that's worth it.
It's one of those things where if it's something that it's more than just you believing in it. It's something where the writing is there and you're like, hey, this is going to be amazing.
Right. But
it is different.
I tend to think it's still not worth crushing somebody, to death. What's interesting to me, though, is I don't think it's worth it. I think, as somebody who has kids, I completely understand that when somebody's like, look, I'm going to go home and tuck my kids in to sleep and I'm not going to come back tonight. Cool. Do that.
Yeah, that's important. I've worked with people who are like, oh, I'm going to go tuck my kids in and then I'm going to be right back at the office. Like, oh, man, that's crazy.
Yeah. And we did that on WildStar. We had the Chad Moore, who's the lore guy, basically, at the time, who turned into the game director eventually. He would do that. He would go tuck his kids in, and then he'd come back, and then we'd work until 12.
That's
whatever
crazy.
It is. But I think that it's not to say that I don't think we shouldn't crunch or work extra hours at all. I think that there are times where there's a deadline coming up. We need to make sure something's good. It's only a week. Okay, we're gonna really put into it. Like, this sucks for this week, but you got to do it, because people travel, right? They go to other parts of the world and they're there for a week and they don't see their family during that time. It's kind of the same thing. Mm-hmm. Now, I wouldn't say, like, because we have not done that personally yet. We have not said to the team,
mandatory, you guys got to be here.
You got to be here for 800 hours.
Or you won't be here.
Yeah, there's none of that. But I think that there are times where, you kind of say this is the expectation we're trying to deliver, and hopefully what you have is like people that are just excited to work on the project and they're willing to just work their ass off because they're excited about it. But you're not going like, you do this, or like, why aren't you staying? He's staying 800 hours. Like,
yeah, and that's important. I think it's very important. I like it when crunch is not a mandate or mandatory. I like it when it's organic. I stay late a lot at work because I am passionate about the things I work on.
Right.
But I enjoy being there with the team. I enjoy when there's a feature that's being worked on. If I can't do it myself and I know the other person that's beside me is staying late because they want to see this feature in, or they're working on something else, and that organic working as a team just happens because the next day when people come in and they play and they see what you guys just worked on, that's a great feeling. I feel it brings joy.
Yeah.
A lot of times with crunch though, it's not like that. A lot of times with crunch, it is mandatory at times. It is all about time management, and a lot of times people unfortunately need to be told when they need to stay, which is something I'm not really a fan of.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean I'm not going to stay and do my regular, this is how I work anyway. But it's important when people are good at self-time management, even though we use Jira, we use things that, people are managing our time for us. But when you can self-manage your time and know that you're not just staying late because everybody else is staying late, but you're staying late because it's a purpose. Like, it's important. It makes it different. I feel it makes it different.
What's crazy to me though, I was thinking about this the other day, that so Rockstar, has made GTA 4 and Red Dead, and these are arguably some of the most successful games that have ever been made.
Important games, games that have changed how games are made and how content is created.
Yeah. Now here's what's crazy though: they crunched the hell out of those people that worked on it. Right?
Yeah, and the bad thing though is that when they do that, they know they're going to let those people go.
Yeah. But what's nuts to me is that, so they crunch their ass off. There's recently stuff I've been reading about NetherRealm, the guys that did Mortal Kombat, right? That they had these crazy crunch hours, that they have this sort of perspective that is very old school, which is like, no, you can expect to be working here and working your ass off, and this is what this team does. And there are a lot of people there that were like, dude, it just grounded me into the ground, drove me into the ground. And I think that what's interesting though is these games are mega successful, right? And so
but they're successful from a player's point of view, but they're successful for the owners.
Right.
Those people, I think it would be different if those people be like, oh, this is what we do here, this is what we do. If they're included in the profits, where like, you're a millionaire, you're a millionaire, you're a millionaire. Yeah. Everyone would have a different mindset because they'll be like, I'm going to be a millionaire in less than a year. Oh my God. Or however much time crunch is. Sure. That's going to change your perspective because the owner is going to be more of a millionaire once everyone crunches.
Sure.
So it is different.
Yeah, it's weird. This is not, side note, this is not me advocating like, no, crunch works. But it's, what is interesting to me is you see these huge, gigantic games that come out that players are, fiending for and will pay lots of money for. And the only way to get them out in this time period, apparently, is to crunch people's asses off, right? So I'm not saying that that's a good thing, but what is interesting to me is if you want them in a short amount of time, to get a Rockstar game out every 4 years or 5 years takes you just annihilating people just to get it done.
Yeah, and it's different, too, from the GTAs and the Red Deads, because they're not just crunching a team. Like, they have their worldwide conglomerate of the Take-Two Interactive.
Yeah, they've got different dev studios.
All the way across the globe, everyone is crunching. Mm-hmm. Everyone is working on the game to some aspect. Because when you watch those credits, every single person that's employed has touched the game to some degree or some capacity, which is crazy.
24 hours a day, that game is being worked on.
It's true.
Right?
Yep, sun up, sundown.
Yeah.
Somewhere.
Yeah, it's not necessarily in San Diego or in New England or wherever it is the Rockstar Studios are that are working on it. But that is something I've been thinking a lot about, because you have these games that are so mega popular and gamers love them, but it requires, according to the people that are making them, you to work your ass off in order to get them out on time. And so
It's like a sacrifice, huge sacrifice.
Yeah.
From people.
So I think you'll find that there are a lot of people that don't work at those places long, right? They'll work there probably one cycle to get a game out, and then they're like, okay, I'm done.